by
So
the
we're saying white people are less likely to offend?
Yes, that's how the judge will consider it. And if
those people are still going to uphold a white supremacist heteropatriarchal culture.
Actually, if you look at Black Caribbean households, 68% are lone parent households, compared to just 22% of white British households. Why don't we look at actually the environment to which young people are being grown up in?
I think it's really disrespectful to even try to allude to absent fathers in that situation, because that's also a myth that you're perpetuating.
This debate was over a new law that will potentially mean minorities get lighter jail sentences. The minute anyone uses white supremacist, patriarchal and heteronormative in the same sentence to describe Britain, you can be sure they are woke zealots. It's often a waste of time even debating them, in all honesty. Their woke religion tells them what to think, and that's that. There's no amount of evidence that will ever change this woman's mind. I'm not sure if black people are more likely to get harsher sentences for the same crime because of racism. It seems far-fetched to me, especially when many of our judges are left-wing activists, and we live in a society that prioritizes minority rights over the majority. And even if you do get longer sentences, you can't just jump to racism without breaking it down to see all the factors involved. The woke zealot absolutely flips when her opponent says black people are more likely to reoffend. Again, I'm not sure if there's truth in that, but I have noticed they never mention socio-economic class. We all know there is a strong link between poverty, antisocial behaviour and crime, regardless of someone's skin colour or religion. But that is ignored because it goes against the woke doctrine. But I have noticed a lot of these teenage murders and stabbings in the media tend to involve black kids or mixed kids with black fathers. That's not racist to point out, it's just my observation. Other opponent says maybe the fact there are much higher rates of family breakdown and absent fathers in the black community is part of the story. The woke zealot is even more outraged at that. Seems a perfectly reasonable suggestion to me. But all that is an issue for society, not the courts. We all know this law that is coming into place is designed to give Muslim, black and trans criminals special protections under the law. Those people are considered sacred to the woke religion. That's why. Anyway, take a watch.
That this stop and search is actually in place in the first place, and the fact that excessive force is used on black youth, men and boys specifically, when they are stopped and searched, then what are we actually changing?
Again, so actually there are some points the collective said that I agree with. Let's look at the reasons as to why certain people are more likely to be drawn into the system. This particular response has nothing to do with the root causes, and I think that we're not talking about things. So in the public discussion, we've had a lot of talk about male role models. Actually, if you look at Black Caribbean households, 68% are lone parent households, compared to just 22% of white British households. Why don't we look at actually the environment to which young people are being grown up in?
I think it's really disrespectful to even try to allude to absent fathers in that situation, because that's also a myth that you're perpetuating.
No, I've given you a concrete statistic. That's a fact.
Can I just finish quickly and then we'll get Collective to respond?
Can I interject?
And similarly, the other point in this pre-sentencing is also religion. Well, what on earth? Why should a Muslim individual be treated differently from a Jew or a Christian? Most people would regard that as discrimination.
Kelechi, I want to get the others in, so can you briefly respond to that? I'd probably not, but can you try to briefly respond?
I can try, but it's illogical. So sometimes when you're trying to justify certain things, there are certain myths that we've perpetuated and propagated throughout. It's not a fact. We can pick statistics any way we want to pick them, but it's disingenuous and it's very irresponsible to sit here and ignore a whole system that pathologizes blackness, that criminalizes blackness as a reason to the absent father households that you're speaking about, and you're not actually contextualizing it.
So no one has any personal responsibility about it.
Everybody has personal responsibility, but that's not what you're talking about. That's what you're talking about, is internalized self-loathing.
Yeah, okay. Nick.
Absolute nonsense.
Okay, Nick.
Sorry. That blackness is not criminalized. It's what people do that is criminalized. And if you happen to be black, a judge will look at everything about you. He will look at the level of culpability. He will look at aggravating features. He will look at matters that make it less serious. And all the matters that we're talking about are put before the judge before he makes a decision as to how you should be sentenced. And if there is some subconscious bias there is an appeal process. So that there is a whole raft of measures to ensure that justice is dealt with fairly. And all in all, it's a pretty good system.
Time is against us. Sorry to interrupt you. How about bail figures then? According to the government data, 19% of white defendants are remanded in custody instead of being granted bail, but that figure rises to 25% with black defendants, 24% with Asian defendants. How can you explain that if there isn't a bias?
I can explain it very simply. You're granted bail. You're refused bail if you're more likely to commit offences on bail, or if you're likely to interfere with the course of justice, or you're likely to abscond. Those are the measures that are considered by the tribunal.
So we're saying white people are less likely to offend?
Yes, that's how the judge will consider it. And if bail is refused...
that's quite a major statement. So you're saying if I was arrested, I'd be more likely to offend?
No, I'm not saying that. I'm not saying... I don't know... If the statistics show that certain ethnic groups are more likely to commit certain offences, or more likely to abscond or interfere with justice, or commit offences whilst on bail, then they will not be granted bail. And that's why bail is refused. It's nothing to do with ethnicity. It's to do with the risk that you pose. And that is the point. It's not the colour of your skin.
I mean, I feel like we've sort of had quite a lot of people go... I feel like you're in a position where you can sort of look and judge, and as a prison reform campaigner, you can reflect on some of those things. So, I mean, there are lots of things to reflect on. How do you reflect on what Nick has just said then?
Well, Nick said the quiet part out loud, really. I think that shows the bias within the system, unfortunately, for me. I think for myself, actually... things that we may be able to agree on as part of the panel is I do think every individual should get a pre-sentencing report. I had one. Mine didn't go very well. I was told that I should go to prison, and that was that. She didn't see any remorse in me, my probation officer, for whatever reason. Thankfully, the judge disagreed. And I think we all seem to agree on the fact that regardless of anything, you should get the same time, regardless of the crime. But that isn't, unfortunately, the way the world works. And we do live in a world where the Lammy Review pointed out that we have the bias issue. And you even have it from people who are ethnic minorities, who are very unlikely to trust even the own advice their own solicitors are giving them, because they see the justice system as them and us. Now, if that is not an entrenched institutional issue within our society and our justice system, I don't know what is. So I think it comes with prevention, it comes with learning, it comes with education, all of the manner of things. I think what the Sentencing Council are trying to do is a short-term fix, which is you're already going over the mark with people who are ethnic minorities, not white people. So we're going to get you to bear it in mind, and hopefully that might level the playing field ever so slightly. Now, whether that's right or wrong, totally different discussion altogether, but that's what I think is happening.
Because we're in position, I can sort of hear that you're desperate to get in. But
I can see.
You can see, but we're out of time. I'm so sorry, enough.